Trending stories on the front pages of our dailies, and I have the papers here with me: The Punch, The Nation, Vanguard, and The Guardian newspaper in no particular order. All right, my name is Mobola Sandra. I'll be having Fuhad Saheed joining in via the phone line to give in-depth analysis to every one of the stories that we'll be treating this morning. We'll run this up until 8:30, and then by 8:40 we come back and have Milan Focus, where you get to be a part of the conversation via phone line, live chat, or WhatsApp or text message. It's going to be an interesting time, so please stay tuned. All right, yesterday, of course, the 10th National Assembly leadership was decided finally, and well, everything I guess played out as it was already looking like it was, or indicating that it was going to play out. That's the major story across all of the papers this morning. We're going to be looking at that, and I was having a conversation with a colleague yesterday, and after all of this, I guess the real conversation then starts as regards ministerial appointment. So well, in the next 2 weeks or in next 1 month or so, it's going to be an interesting one for all of Nigerians as we look ahead positively at whatever it is that the Tinubu-led administration has in store for all of us. Right, let's good morning, Fuhad.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you very much. Okay, so we have, of course, trending across all the papers. That is the major headline across all of the papers this morning, is the 10th National Assembly. It played out quite interestingly, don't you think? Exactly. As there's a particular headline here on the front page of the Punch. It says Tinubu's candidates floor APC rebels. Akpabio leads Senate. Maybe I should start with that. Let's see what we have here, because it's quite an interesting. We're not taking phone calls yet. Please hold. We'll take phone calls after trends in the papers. So for those who are already calling into the show, please
calm down.
Yes, I know we all have something to say. All right. So thank you very much, although we appreciate the passion and excitement, of course. All right. Fuhad, 10th National Assembly, major headline on the front page of the Punch: Tinubu's candidates floor APC rebels. Akpabio leads Senate, and we have riders to that. Abbas beats Wase Jaji, emerges House Speaker. Yari embraces Akpabio after defeat. National Assembly won't be independent. Presidency hand-picked leaders. That's coming from NNPP and Labour Party. So before we go, to all of the riders, all of them, interesting conversations on their own. Do we have APC rebels, people who decided to go ahead with their aspirations? Can we term them as rebels just because the APC had, zoned to particular individuals, or micro-zoned to particular individuals? Does it make other people who aspired, when I mean other people now, I mean, yeah,
other members of the party.
Okay, yeah. Yes, other members of the party who decided to forge ahead with their aspirations or with their support of another candidate, does it make them rebels?
Well, I think the Punch editors were just trying to play on words, play with words in this particular headline. The beauty of democracy is that they have a right to contest, and the fact that they decided to contest against the wish of the party does not make them political rebels. That in itself is the beauty of democracy. It's within their right to have done what they did. I think one of the bright sides of what happened yesterday, or the brighter sides of what happened yesterday, was the fact that the losers, quote and unquote, immediately congratulated the winners.
There was no drama.
After no drama, no expression of dissatisfaction in the way the election was conducted. Nobody accused anybody of rigging. I think to a large extent it was free and fair, the way the elections were conducted. Although with all manner of drama and comic relief, I must say, I think.
When you say comic relief, I hope you're not referring to the women that were hustling for, in the video. I hope that's not the one you're referring to.
No. Well, that's also provided some comic relief.
Okay.
When we saw the wives of the new speaker, pushing themselves, to say no. Now maybe false wife you have
women were just as you said. See, I'm a woman. Let me put it that way.
People like to do man of drama.
No, but that was quite an interesting, play out there, and I wonder why there was some sort of focus there. But just as you mentioned, there was
the glove. The cameras were there to pick it, and it was quite an obvious thing. So
yeah, no, because the cameras picked it. It's okay.
I just saw that the new speaker was a bit embarrassed by that scene.
I was embarrassed. I had third person embarrassment.
No, for people who understand the way polygamous home runs, maybe they will not be too surprised. You have all manner of. If you remember the series Fuji House of Commotion.
Well, I hope in one way or the other we won't be. I hope that there's no more of that to come.
No. This is
this particular.
I think it ends on. I think it ends all yesterday.
Okay,
I think it was because
so we can focus.
They were being sworn in and they were allowed to bring in their families. But I wondered why he brought his two wives. He would have just told the second wife stay at home, let the fourth wife come around. But again, it's his choice, and that was one bright side also. A bit of a comic relief for me, nothing too serious.
Of course.
And then the Labour Party man at the House of Reps.
Yes.
I've forgotten his name now. That said his art is for Wase and Gaji. But he will be casting his vote for TJ Abbas. Yeah. How can your heart be for somewhere? How can your heart belong somewhere and you are casting your vote somewhere else?
Because your treasure is supposed to be where your heart is. So I'm wondering,
that's what I'm saying now.
where
he said God cast your vote. He said, my heart is with you, but I will casting my vote for TJ Abbas. Which kind of thing is this?
Maybe just to let you know that where we are now, I may have assured you that I will be for you. But right now,
okay.
So just to clear things up.
That means his heart has moved. He shouldn't keep his heart where he's not casting his vote. That's what I'm saying.
I hope
your heart should be where you are casting your vote.
I hope his heart is safe though. After that declaration, I'm just saying.
Sandra. And another interesting thing was the voting process at the House of Reps. The Senate did
was open voting. The House of Reps was open voting.
Yeah. And that was the first time we have seen that kind of voting at the chambers, at the National Assembly, where you have to stand up to say who you are voting for.
That's
because again, if we consider all of the politicking, the politrading that went on before yesterday, I wondered how the members agreed to voting in that manner, a voice vote. So if anything had gone under, there's no way you can do any mago.
That Fuhad. And
I guess
Fuhad.
Yes.
That was why I said I hope his heart is safe. I hope his heart is okay. after that
for what he did.
After that declaration.
And then Sandra, for all of us that were hoping that the opposition would be working together. I think what happened yesterday just shows that look, the party is the party. These are individuals with their own idea of how they want to do things. And I think basically what they did was that they just take their own personal interest, took their own stakes, and decided on what to do. Because the man that said his heart was voting for TJ Abbas, the Labour Party member. So what we spent yesterday was that the opposition didn't work together.
As a lot of people had envisaged, the conversation had been that, or the metrics had been that if the opposition worked together, they would be the determining factor. But at the end of
they didn't work together. Everybody for himself yesterday.
Everyone just plus people that had their heart somewhere else, and they had their head somewhere else, or they had their mouth and they had their mouth somewhere else. So it was all over the place, and it was quite an interesting one to watch. The open voting happening. Yes, at the national. One would have expected that with 181 opposition members that there will be some sort of there will be something more intriguing to look out for. But at the end of the day, Fuhad, another thing that I think we should also look at was the vote that the other guys got. They got 3 votes each. That's I don't know what would you make of that?
Sandra, again, it's not easy to fight the federal might. If, for example, you have the president deploying every of the federal might behind you, at some point it was not just even President Tinubu meeting with these guys. At a stage, he even delegated the vice president to be in charge. to ensure that the wish of the president and the party comes to bear. You know, at some point it was Shetima that was rallying everybody. If you remember the G5 or is it the G7? The House of Reps members eventually became G1. You know,
there was no G for because at the end of the day, all the G7 actually voted for the party's candidates. Yes.
So you must understand that. Look, I think maybe the experience of the Saraki era is on that way. On that, the APC were not ready to take chances. They arrived at the chambers very early. Maybe some of them even slept at the chambers. We don't know. You know, but,
they were there before 8 a.m.
I suppose.
So just in case,
so I guess
we have some people.
Maybe some of them slept in their cars.
That's not possible.
You know, so it's not impossible. Politicians.
All right, but so Fuhad, now let's move on to the story that we have here. Tinubu's candidates. When you say Tinubu's candidate, that's another thing that I'd also like us to focus on, because from the Guardian newspaper, this is how the Guardian reports it. Tinubu's men lead 10th National Assembly. So we have Tinubu's candidates, we have Tinubu's men. What do you think of this tagging, or how they have been tagged now as regards the independency of the National Assembly going forward?
Well, the support for these men were clear. The president was very, very clear about his choice, and about his support for them. And I think that's the reason why the papers, most of the papers are tagging them as Tinubu's men, Tinubu's boys, Tinubu's candidates, and all of that. For me, Sandra, after all said and done, for APC supporters of the president, and for everyone who had advocated for a national assembly that will not be working at cross purposes with the president, I think they are happy now, and I'm hoping that look, there won't be any excuses. Now they've gotten what they want. They have a national assembly that will be presided over by men of the president. I wouldn't want to be it's too early for me to say anything whether we are going to see an independent national assembly that will be able to show some level of vibrancy and do their job when it comes to checks and balances. But again, for people who wanted this to happen, who wanted a national assembly that will be controlled by men of the president, I think they should be happy now. And then we'll see how that works out. Because their argument has always been that, look, they don't want an assembly that would be destructive, that would always antagonize the wishes of the president or the executive. They wanted a national assembly that will be supported. I fear for a rubber stamp because
Fuad, please move position a bit. I can't hear you anymore.
Okay, is it better now?
Okay, thank you. Yes, please come again.
So my fear is, look, we've gotten a national assembly from control men of the president. But how do we guarantee the independence of the National Assembly? How robust will they be? How will they be in their engagement with the executive? Like I said, to the glory of God, everyone that wanted an assembly that will be so supportive of the executive have gotten it now. And I hope that when it comes to coming up with laws that would give the country a different path, that would, of course, get the country going again, there won't be excuses.
So what parts, where do we have our checks and balances if we have the legislative and the executive in bed together, agreeing on everything? Where does the, part of checks and balances, where does it come in as regards the oversight function of the National Assembly? Because here on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, we have Tinubu's men lead 10th National Assembly, vow not to be rubber stamp. Okay? Because you mentioned something earlier as regards, how do we then ensure that, okay, fine, we have people that are ready and willing to work with the president. All right. But then how do we still ensure that while they are, supportive of the president's policies and plans and visions for the country, how do we still ensure that we have people who will be able to stand their grounds where it is necessary?
You see, Sandra, I've always said it, and I think the hope lies basically in our hands, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
You see, if you look at the way the entire drama ended yesterday, you understand that. Look, you see, all of these politicians are the same. Forget about party affiliations or platforms and all of that. I think to a great extent, they are in that house with individual interest, and that's what they are there to protect. And I think it played out clearly yesterday in the voting pattern. Like I said, if a man says his heart belongs somewhere but he's voting somewhere else, I think that should tell you a whole lot about what happened yesterday. A lot of politicking and politrading was what happened yesterday. But I always say this, Sandra, that look, democracy allows that you now have 5 levels of government: the executive, the legislature, judiciary. Sandra, at the validity service of the Senate, this 9th Senate, before this 10th one, something instructive happened about a particular senator that talked about the fact that, look, his wife was the former president of the Court of Appeal, and that indeed he had influenced several decisions of the Court of Appeal. Although he was shut down, the former Senate President Lawan shut him down and said that, look, you should just stop talking about what he was saying. Again, there are fears about the sanctity of the judiciary. There are fears about the independence of the judiciary. So if we are afraid about the independence of the judiciary in a democratic experiment, and we are also afraid now about the independence of the legislature, do you know where the hope lies now, Sandra? It lies in our hands as the fourth estate of the realm, the media, to keep an eye on them and whatever they do. Dig up stories, investigate them, put spotlight on their activities and inform the people. That's why we always try to explain that, look, I don't mind if people disagree with my position on things. We are not here to force our opinion on anybody. All we do on the show, Sandra, is to get people thinking. Set the agenda, put the information out there, give our own opinion on it, and get our people to think critically about them. Not necessarily to support whatever we come up with. We are only doing our job. And I also think that apart from the fourth estate of the realm, the media, that should roll up its sleeves now, tackle issues and be bold to do their job independently without fear of favor. I would also encourage the fifth estate of the realm, which is my own creation, the civil society organization, the organized labor, and then the people too, to join us with the organized labor and the civil society organizations to keep an eye on these governments. Both from the executive to the legislative to the judiciary, we must always engage them, critically analyze their issues, check their policies, and set the agenda for them. This is not a time to begin to have political sentiment and forget that, look, you have a role to play to further help to deepen our democracy. Sandra, I've chosen to play my own role, and I'll continue to play it well. And for me, that's where the hope lies.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Fuhad. On page 28 of the Guardian newspaper, we have here the Senate President, Akpabio, promising that his leadership will not witch hunt his opponents in the struggle for the Senate presidency, as he extends his hand of fellowship to Yari and senators who did not vote for him. Also, we have the Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, who has promised that the 10th Assembly will work in harmony with the executive arm while upholding principles of checks and balances. He, however, emphasized that collaboration with the executive will be anchored on the principles of transparency, accountability, and respect for the rule of law. Now, as it is now, there are a lot of other, promises that they made, just because after their inauguration, they also visited the president himself. So they, with some other governors.
Thank him. Yeah.
There were. Yes. Now, Fuhad, let's also look at the division. Should I say division or the expansion? Or the way it was spread out, or the spread that we now have as regards our arms of government, because the conversation, also came up yesterday, and I said, okay, let's look at what we have here. Fuad, we have our president. We have our president, President Bola Tinubu of the executive, a Southwesterner. We have Vice President Kashim Shettima, who is from the Northwest. Now we have Sorry?
From the northeast.
Northeast, apologies.
From the northeast.
From
yes.
the northeast. Yeah. Now we have the legislative arm of government. Let me go to the legislative. We now have the legislative arm of government, where we have the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, who is from the South. We have the Deputy Senate President, who is from the Northwest. That's Jibrin Barau. Now we have the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, who is who's from the Northwest as well. Excuse me, who's from the Northwest as well. And then we have the Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Kalu, who is from the Southeast. All right. Some people would argue that, we have, and then we have the judiciary, who is from the Southwest. Okay. Now, some people would have it that we have quite a fair enough spread. What are your thoughts?
You see, Sandra, for sake of talking about equity, fairness, balance of power, and all of that, I would want to talk on this. Because again, there's a North Central that is missing from this calculation completely.
But the SGF is not central. But it's not a major part of the arm of government, yes. But
that's what I'm saying. It's an appointment. It's an appendix of the executive, of the president. If we're going to look at it like that, that's not a major arm of government. It's just an appointee that can be removed at will.
All right.
Tomorrow we can wake up and hear that he has been changed by the president.
True.
If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
So it does not even create that balance, really, if we're going to be looking at it from that angle.
Okay.
Because there's no reason why, for example, the speakership should not have gone to the North Central. Or in the minimum, the deputy speakership position should have gone to the North Central, if we're going to be looking at it like that. And that was one of the things Wase was pushing, and the other members that have been tagged as rebels of the APC. That look, this calculation does not guarantee equity and fairness. But Sandra, the reality is this. Politicians only talk about equity, fairness, and balance of power when their interest is involved. The reality is that they are not even committed to that doctrine in what they do. You know that, look, we talked about the Muslim and all of that. At the end of the day, we have discovered that, look, it was not even as if the APC were really committed to anything Muslim or not. It was done yesterday, signed at National Assembly to choose presiding officers. There are other principal positions that will be decided on, positions that people are going to jostle to take. And of course, there will be a lot of trading and politics that will also be interesting to see. The other way that we can probably create some equity and fairness, although the constitution is already clear on that, is when it comes to ministerial positions. Again, there are people who will tell you that we have some Minister of Works, Minister of Power. Some ministers are bigger than others. If you look at the kind of influence and position they hold, and the portfolio and all of that. So I'm sure that, look, that will also come to play when we continue to talk about equity, fairness, and all of that. Again, the constitution requires that, look, each state must have a minister for this government to perform and take Nigerians out of the doldrum of poverty, misgovernance, poor infrastructure, and a whole lot of things that is bedeviling us at this time. If they perform, honestly, Sandra, all of these conversations about equity, where this one is from, and all of that, would be a thing, or would not be a major thing for us to talk about. Let them perform and give.
If I get you correctly now, so far you're still not satisfied with the spread that we have as regards, national unity. So we should still expect that, as the other principal positions are being taken up, and then we have ministerial appointments, and then we'll be able to know if truly we have an inclusive, government or not.
Yes, that's my position. Again, that's my position.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Just to reiterate, for those who are just tuning in, this is Mainland 98.3 FM, and we're looking through trending stories, major trending stories across all of the papers this morning. And of course, the major story across all the papers is the 10th National Assembly and the emergence of Senator Godswill Akpabio as Senate President. Again, we have the President, Bola Tinubu, from the Southwest. We have Vice President Kashim Shettima from the Northeast. We have Senate President Godswill Akpabio from South. We have Speaker of the House Tajuddin Abbas from Northwest.
Abbas.
Yes.
Our friend. A very good friend.
TJ Abbas with his beautiful wives, very beautiful wives.
Beautiful wives.
Deputy Senate
Maybe the others did not come. We don't know whether they are limited.
Maybe they're even more than maybe somebody in the car. Correct.
But the second wife looks not beautiful.
How do you know she's the second? Because she came second. Maybe she's the first.
They pushed her aside now. The first came and pushed her aside.
It's all right. Deputy Senate President Jibrin Barau from Northwest and Deputy Speaker from Southeast. That is the spread. And of course, we have the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ajibola from the Southwest. So that's quite an interesting spread. But then we're still expecting, ministerial appointments and whatnot. Then we'll be able to, dig deeper into national inclusivity. Now, we looked through across all the papers for the story this morning as regards the 10th National Assembly. However, right now, I'll move back to the Punch newspaper.
Honestly, Sandra, our attitude towards safety generally is bad and poor, completely poor. And I think it's just a thing of orientation. We are not really a safety cautious people in everything we do. It's not just about transportation. Even when it comes to construction, when it comes to a lot of things, you see to our construction site, you see that safety protocols are not
wearing helmets,
are not respected. There are no helmets, nobody's taking care. So generally, I think when it comes to the issue of safety, you also go to our market. There are no fire equipment in case there's a fire incident. Nobody takes care of little things that could be a safety problem. So it's a problem generally. I think when it comes to safety issues, we need to do more. Incidentally, there's a safety commission in Lagos State, for example, that is supposed to set safety standards across the state. I don't know whether we have a federal safety commission, but I think we can, as a matter of national urgency, set up something like that to ensure that, look, in everything we do, we set some safety standards and we make people adhere to those safety standards. It's unfortunate. I always say, even in Lagos, they are not too comfortable, with both rides to different parts of Lagos. I've gone to some of the jetties, and I still think that, look, when it comes to safety, we're not doing enough. This is very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate, and avoidable too.
Well, the story is on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. Still on the front page of Punch, we have here Aiyedatiwa steps in as Akeredolu goes on medical leave. So finally, Fuhad, the conversation has come up. The conversation had been there in hush-hush tones. There have been some undertones as regards why the Ondo State governor, had not yet handed over to the deputy, since there were allegations or indications that he may be struggling health-wise. But now, yes, we have that the Ondo State governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, on Tuesday wrote to the State House of Assembly informing the legislature that he was going on a 21-day medical leave. He also notified the assembly that he had handed over to the deputy governor, Mr. Lucky Aiyedatiwa, to act as governor while he is away. Akeredolu, who is said to be ill, has been off public scenes in recent times, while most of his official assignments are being carried out by his aides on his behalf. As it is now, is on 21-day on a 21-day leave for medical treatment abroad, and the leave started was backdated, I don't know, to June 7, 2023, and is to run till July 6, factoring in the 3 public holidays that are in between. That is Democracy Day June 12 and the Eid al-Kabir 28th and 29th of June. So there you have it, Fuhad. But some people would ask questions as regards why it took this long, or should we let's move on since finally it has been done, and can we just move
I think we should just move on, Sandra. I think because already we've discussed this enough, and now that the right thing has been done, I think we should just move on from it. But I think it should it should also tell us that politicians should just always learn to do the right thing. The governance should be about the people, not about personal interest. So I think we should not waste too much time on this. The right thing has been done. The deputy is now in charge. A letter is waiting to the House. And then after 21 days, we'll take it from there. We will know what happens again those days.
Okay, thank you very much. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM. This is Trends in the Papers. We are looking through major trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. Don't forget, we are live actually on Facebook and YouTube. We are live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can watch the program live there at Mainland 98.3 FM on both Facebook and YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. I see a very, very funny and interesting comment in our live chat on Facebook. Fuhad, I'm going to screenshot and send it to you later on. It's actually quite an interesting one. All right, let's move on now to Vanguard newspaper. Of course, the major headline, we have already had a conversation around that, which is the 10th National Assembly. Now, we're moving on above the masthead of Vanguard newspaper. There's an very interesting headline there. It says some Nigerian returnees from Libya came back without kidneys and bowels. Says NAPTIP. Yes, and that story is on page. They came back without kidneys
and what?
Bile, B-I-L-E.
Yeah, bile. Okay.
Yes. So I'm just going to go through the story very quickly. So the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, disclosed that some trafficked Nigerians rescued from Libya had their kidneys, bowels, and other organs harvested without their knowledge. This is just as it was disclosed that over 20,000 trafficked Nigerians were rescued and brought home by the International Migration Organization. And the disclosure has been made by the agency's Director, Intelligence Training and Manpower Development, Dr. Arinze Orakwe. Fuhad, here we have it, the revelation that missing organs have been detected. Victims are currently undergoing medical screening and all of that as regards, trafficking. What is because this is a very major area of concern. People are trying to get out of the country for better life, trying to see how they can, better.
Going where precisely, Sandra? Going where? Going to Libya? You are trying to jackpot fine, but
they can't get life.
Libya.
Libya?
As it is, Libya is almost like a pariah state. Sorry, Libya is a lawless state as we see. There's even no central government. Nobody is in command in Libya. I think it's important that people should also, at least, before you take decisions about leaving the country, nobody's going to stop anybody from leaving. We understand that, look, there's that need, that's desperation for people to want to go anywhere and everywhere in the world. But there are countries you don't even go to. When the issue of Sudan happened, that was the same question we're asking. What exactly were people looking for in Sudan? A Sudan that does not really have a central government? Libya, since the death of Muammar Gaddafi, has been in form of chaos. You only have gangs and people holding different territories. So there's no central command, really. And then, and that's why it's important that we also do our jobs to inform the people. You want to just travel, just come and travel, and then you dump at it. We've also seen videos of people in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in some other, Maghreb countries like that, begging for them to be rescued. Some of them were tricked to go and work as house helps, and then they are violated, they are abused by their boss, and they can't even return. So that there's a black market for organ harvesting, and that's what we are seeing here. And seeing that, look, organs were harvested without their consent, without them knowing.
Without their knowledge, yes.
And if you have bile, Sandra, I'm not a doctor, but I know without bile, there's no digestion. How do you eat and have digestion? It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. But I think people should be careful when people, there are traffickers who exploit the innocence of people, who exploit, the lack of knowledge of the people.
Yes, but don't you think at this point now it should be a factor of doing your due diligence? So it's not. You see, there are a lot of conversation, or there are a lot of adverts out there. Travel to this place with 20,000 naira, travel to that place with 13,000 and all of that. I think, don't you think at this point people should actually do some sort of homework as regards the people that are helping them out of the country?
Sandra, there are people with this very vague and false orientation. That immediately you enter an aircraft and it flies you out of the country, it's El Dorado. They just think that, look, just enter any aeroplane. You don't even know where the aeroplane is going to. Just getting flies out of the country, my life is better. And there are countries that, again, we have a lot of stories of, people being, treated this way. Look, just imagine.
All right. Well, stories on page 6. A very, very unfortunate situation. You try to go out there for a better life, and then you come back with have organs. Stories on page
How,
6 of Vanguard newspaper.
and these are vital organs that look when they are missing, Sandra. The chance of
It's-
survival is reduced to, to less than 50%. Really.
We also have here on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, governors ignorant of minimum wage, says NLC. And we have the story says the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has said governors were ignorant of what minimum wage was all about. And speaking in an interview on the sideline of the ongoing 111th session of the International Labour Conference in Geneva, Switzerland, NLC General Secretary Ima Ugwaja said governors had made a mockery of minimum wage, while lamenting that the governors ought to have been impeached for breaching the minimum wage law. The greatest challenge to wage administration in Nigeria is the ignorance of the governors. Fuhad, do you agree?
Ignorance. You know, the discipline of the governors, not ignorance. If the labor is saying ignorance, then they're giving them a soft land. These governors know what they are doing. Sandra, have you forgotten that somebody sent us their salary slip, their pay slip?
Yes.
And in a particular state in Nigeria, somebody was being paid 4,000. How much was he paid?
2,736 naira. Yeah. And it was written. And it was written there. Salary. It was written.
It was salary.
Yeah,
In a state
in the
Nigeria.
description. Yes. It was somewhere in Kogi
So
State.
I think, okay, you've mentioned Kogi State. I didn't want to mention this.
I have mentioned Kogi State.
So are we going to excuse the governor on the altar of ignorance? Look, there's a lot of wickedness going on at the level of government. If you pay somebody 4,000, 2,000, although, Sandra, I served in a state where the people that collect this money, don't even bother to appear to, I think the governor just assumed that, look, whatever money they are giving to them is a form of dash. They are not even expected to come to work. You understand what I'm saying? But it is important that, look, if it's a law, if the minimum wage thing is a law, then it must be respected. But I doubt if it is a law generally in all the states of the federation, because what we have is that each state now fixes its own minimum wage. So it's not dependent. It's now left to the labor union in the different states to negotiate this minimum wage, their governors. And so you have governors who will negotiate with you and still will not pay, or will negotiate with the labor and pay what they want to pay. But what I'm saying is that, look, it is not as a result of ignorance of the law. It is just, the wickedness of some of the governors, or what you call a misbehavior when it comes to governance. How do you pay somebody 2,005 and you wrote their salary? We saw it, they sent it to us, Sandra. It's not ESC. And upon all of that, you see how governors who are owing 10 months, 9 months, 6 months, some of them up to a year. In this same country, Sandra, we had a governor that was paying modulated salary. Have you forgotten? Modulated. You remember modulated salary?
Of course. Nah, I don't want to mention states because it seems you don't want to mention states. So let me be on the same page with you. But Fuhad, thank you very much for that breakdown, because just as mentioned, the NLC is saying that the greatest challenge to wage administration in Nigeria is ignorance of the governors, saying that our governors have made a mockery of what a national minimum wage ought to be in Nigeria by reducing it to their own definition of what they are willing to pay the workers. All right. More details on page 8 of Vanguard newspaper, and also we're still running this morning on trends in the papers. We have here still on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, ill health. Akeredolu on medical leave transmits power to deputy. That's coming from Ondo Assembly, and then we also have. That's all we can take actually from Vanguard newspaper. Let's move on now very quickly to the Nation newspaper. This is Milan 98.3 FM. Thank you to everyone who is also watching us live on Facebook. We see your comments there on our live chat as well, and on YouTube. Don't forget, we're also live on YouTube at Milan 98.3 FM. Now, Fuhad, I have just here above the masthead of the Nation newspaper, financial markets rebound on Emefiele's suspension. We also have riders underneath. Naira firms up. Equities make 1.215 trillion naira gain. And that story is on page 29 of the Nation newspaper. So just before we start saying, "Oh yay," and then we start rolling out the drums. Before we start rolling out the drums,
Yeah.
Nigeria.
The capital market has a tendency for reacting positively when there's a major change, especially when the change is on the status of somebody as important as the governor of the CBN. There's always that optimism that look, something new is coming up and all of that. So it's just a spontaneous reaction. It's not probably going to be sustainable, really, because it's not happening as a result of any major monetary policy change. It's just what you call a spontaneous market reaction to a major change in the personnel handling and financial matters and all of that. If I don't be surprised, every time there's a change in government too, you have the market reacting that way, and then the reality now begins to set in. So I don't think there's anything happening as a result of a major monetary change. It's just really things that happen when a new government comes in. Something as you have a new CBN governor and all of that. So for me, it's just a spontaneous reaction, nothing too serious there for me.
All right, because there are reactions, actually. There are reactions from different, experts, stakeholders in the financial sector. We have Group Executive Director, Investment Banking of Corridors Capital, Mr. Femi Ademola, said the markets appear to have suffered significantly from the regulatory flip-flops of the CBN in the past few years. And according to him, the regular interventions in the market and the deluge of circulars and policy action resulted in volatility in the market. However, therefore, is noting now that the immediate market reaction to the news of the CBN governor's suspension is likely to be positive. He, however, noted that the steps taken by the federal government within the next few days and weeks will determine the long-term reactions of the markets. Also, we have Managing Director, APT Securities and Funds, noted that the international response to the decision to suspend the CBN chief could have an impact on the domestic market. And he also said that, now looking at the acting CBN governor with optimism, saying that it could influence the markets going.
Even with new, look, you could also get some reactions. But beyond all of that, we'll have to wait to see the monetary policy direction of this government to really know what we will get at the end of the day.
All right, and finally this morning I have here on the front page, not yet, finally, sorry. Poverty shouldn't limit any child from attaining highest education level, says Tinubu, when he was visited yesterday by the National Association of Nigerian Students at the Presidential Villa. They went there to express their appreciation for solidarity. Okay, for the president. For the students' loan bill. The leaders of the student body visited him to thank him for signing into law the students' loan bill, which will provide loans to indigent over inability to pay school fees. Fuhad, I'm not going to ask much because I know you've already You've already.
No, they went to see.
Their visitation, the fact that they actually support the student loan bill. That I don't know if it's the Nigerian student visited the president. The leader.
I think they are ESCO members. Maybe they are ESCO members.
Yes. All right, and also we have here, moving on to the Guardian newspaper very, very quickly, we have Nigeria's production hits 1.2 million barrels per day as Total announces oil discovery. See how blessed we are, Fuhad. We should be doing Thanksgiving. We should be doing Thanksgiving every week in this country.
Well,
just
I wish it comes as a blessing,
Well, Nigeria's oil production edged slightly last month to regain its leading position in Africa. While 1.2. Yesterday, OPEC pegged the country's oil production in May at 1.2 million barrels, which is still far below the 2023 budget benchmark of 1.6 and OPEC's quota of 1.8. So, but the figure is provided by the global body once again differs from statistics reviewed yesterday by the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, which puts daily production at 1.4 million barrels. So, Fuhad, here we are. We have the fact that OPEC said that we're producing 1.2. We have a 2023 budget benchmark of 1.6. We have OPEC's quota of 1.8, and then we have our NUPRC saying that we have a daily production of 1.4. The story, anyways, is on page 4 of The Guardian. All right.
Like I said, I think the last time we were talking about our oil production output, I think the last time we were able to do over 2 million barrels per day was during the Obasanjo era. You know, quotas are determined by how you are able to meet up your quota. If they are giving us 1.8,
just a few more seconds, Fuhad, please.
You know, there's no way we're going to be demanding for an increment in our quota. So we're still far from what OPEC expects us to do. We can get better with it. Let's hope the new government will ensure that, you know, the safety of our, you know, crude exploration and all of that is guaranteed, and then we can move up.
Thank you very much. And that is all that we can take this morning from those are the major trending stories from the papers. We'll take a short break now, and then we'll be back by 8:40 for Milan Focus, where you get to be a part of the conversation when we share the focus for the day. In the meantime, when we come back, we'll also, celebrate the final acknowledgement of the Guinness World Records of Hilda Bassi, attaining longest cooking marathon by an individual with 93 hours and 11 minutes. Stay with us. Don't go
Congratulations to Hilda, Chef, right? Chef Hilda Bassi.
Hilda F. Young. Chef Hilda F. Young Bassi. Yes, that's it.
Okay.
All right, stay with us. This is Milan 98.3 FM. We'll be right back.